Hello, everyone. Welcome to our video here. We're the group, always in sync. And we're here to talk to you guys about introspective insight with our group members, Khrisha, Ezra, Abby, Jesus, me, wait, Abby, Jesus, me, and Davey. Yes. And then here, Abby will be the one talking to you about what our review looks like right now.
Hi guys, my name is Abby. So today what we will be discussing are the foundations of group communication, group development, group membership and roles, group motivation, groups and meetings, and listening in groups.
Hey guys, I'm Davey Torres, and today we'll be talking about foundations of group communications. Um, you know, the chapter has two main takeaways: the definition of communication and the 8 essential components in communication. Defining communication, we have communication is the process of understanding and sharing meaning. One, understanding is to perceive, to interpret, and to relate our perception and interpretation to what we already know. Working with Always in Sync, I've never worked with a group more understanding on and off concept. Like everything that we've discussed and shared, we've always like understood each other pretty good. Two, sharing is doing something together with one or more other people. Always in Sync, we've shared about all types of information that help everyone be successful in the course. A lot of times it could be on the book or it can be through a link online or something like Google, etc. And then three, we have meaning is what we share through communication. When we would communicate amongst one another, we would explain our meaning behind our words. When we did group projects, we would elaborate on the words we use and the meaning behind it. Next, we have the 8 essentials of communication, elements of communication. First, we have source, person who imagines, creates, and sends the message. We've always were able to back up the source through online links or Zoom, Google, and from the book. Second, we have message, the stimulus or meaning produced by the source for the receiver or audience. We used group text mainly to deliver our messages or emails. Third, we have channel, the way in which a message or messages travel between source and receiver. Our main two channels were group text and Zoom. Given since this is a hybrid fast track, those were our only options, honestly. Um, Fourth, we have receiver, which receives the messages from the source, analyzing and interpreting the message in ways both intended and unintended by the source. In my group, I had 5 different receivers who are my classmates who have helped me look over assignments and interpret them in their ways so I can learn better. Next, we have feedback, messages the receiver sends back to the source. We've always were good at giving feedback. A lot of times when we agree on something, we always give feedback, or other times when we don't agree with things, we always give feedback. Next, we have environment, the atmosphere, physical and psychological, where you send and receive messages. Since this class was online, our environment wasn't physically there. It was more like a digital environment. And lastly, we have context, which involves the setting, scene, and expectations of the individuals involved. Our context was consisted of Zoom meetings since our class was online. That was our setting, and that's where we shared our information. And that's my part.
Hi everyone. So in chapter 3, group development was discussed. Through correct team development, team members will have plenty of opportunities to build rapport with the foundation of acceptance. When people trust one another, they're more likely to share ideas, collaborate effectively, and make the right decisions for everyone and the project. So upon our first meeting, I think it's safe to say we were all pretty nervous. We didn't know much about each other, and we were fearful that we'd get group mates that weren't hard workers, or that we didn't necessarily get along with, or that were not particularly reliable. But luckily that wasn't the case for us. Our first group meeting, we had an icebreaker assignment to do. I know icebreakers can be a bit awkward, but I don't think there was much awkwardness between us. There was an immediate sense of comfortability between us all. And this was our group's forming stage. So we came together to learn about each other and learned how to work in a group together. According to social penetration theory, we fear what we don't know. So working in a group can be very hard, and especially when it's with strangers. It's important to disclose some information with your group to minimize uncertainty. As the amount of interactions increase, the less uncertain you feel in your group, which brings a certain level of trust that is needed to work in a group efficiently. So our second stage was our storming stage, and this arrived when our first conflict happened. So our first conflict we faced as a group was when a member was going to be out of town and couldn't make it to a specific meeting. We had to decide as a group that if we were going to reschedule completely, or if we were just going to allow that person to miss that one meeting. Because we had our weekly assignments only to do that week, we decided that it wasn't necessary to reschedule, and it wasn't vital that they were there for that particular meeting. So for number 3, our norming stage. Our norming stage happened in week 2, where we wrote our group contract. So as a group, we decided on meeting once a week, which was Mondays at 10 a.m. Everyone has really busy schedules and their own lives outside of school. So that day and time worked best for everyone. So that's the day that we stuck to. Aside from deciding our meetings, we also decided how to go about our meetings. Since everyone agreed on meeting once a week, we would get that entire week worth of work done. And so we carved out from 10 a.m. to about 12 p.m. most times to knock out as much work as we could to ensure that we were using our time efficiently. And we also had a goal of finishing our projects early just to get them out of the way. So each time that we met to go over our project or a group assignment, each group member came prepared and ready to work and share their part. For the performance stage, this is a stage where we worked on this final project. Each task of the project was broken down and assigned to group members accordingly. Each member was in charge of a certain chapter of the book. We created an outline so that everyone was aware of what their part would include. We all had a week to create a solid rough draft, and at the end of that week, we came together to see everyone's progress and have a practice run of our presentation. We set a different date to finalize and record our final presentation. And once our final presentation was completed, we congratulated one another on completing the project. We couldn't have accomplished this project or the entirety of the class without each individual's dedication to the group or meeting our weekly goals. So as we close the performance stage, we are entering the adjourning stage. And the adjourning stage is when the group members leave the group. So as the class ends, we will be writing a reflection on how well the group project went, as well as the whole class. We will discuss what worked well, what didn't, and how we can improve this for our future groups. Some of us may stay in touch and some may not, but we will all take the experiences and skills that we learned in this class and group with us in our future.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ezra. I'm going to be discussing group memberships and roles. So discussing the different group task roles, maintenance roles, and self-centered roles. All these roles were assigned in our group for group task and maintenance roles. That starts for a coordinator. They facilitate order and progress. The information provider researches and shares relevant information within the group. The analyzer assesses and evaluates group decisions, ensuring group productivity. The opinion provider expresses informed opinions, ensured varied points of view. The clarifier explains ideas and helps correct misunderstandings. The implementer transforms ideas into actions by developing and following through with plans. We have questioners whom ask for information and request clarification. And we have the recorder who take notes on group discussions, important decisions, and commitments of action. On maintenance roles, we have the supporter role, which encourages everyone and makes sure that everybody has what they need to get the job done. We have harmonizers who help manage conflict within the group and facilitate common ground. We have the motivators who encourage group ideas and lead everybody in the same common goal. We have the gatekeeper who monitors the flow of communicating. The team builders promote strong group identity and foster unity. Thankfully, none of my group members had any self-centered roles. These self-centered roles contain aggressors, blocks, deserters, dominators, recognition seekers, confessors, or jokesters or clowns. Moving on to responding, enforcing, and challenging and changing norms. Norms root from environments we surrounded ourselves in and what we grow up in. So for example, a norm can be as simple as eating dinner every day at 6 p.m. with your family at the table. That is a normality in that lifestyle, but not all people are going to be experiencing that same norm. Sometimes there's norms that develop over time, and at some point there'll be a person that needs to challenge this norm because it's not appropriate in the current environment. And it's important to change norms that do not promote something positive for the environment or group. For example, you go to work and as soon as you clock in, your coworkers use you clocking in as a vent sesh about their other coworkers or customers. And that could be not a very positive environment. So you want to change what has become a normality and challenge that. So overall, the work environment will change into a better normality and a better flow. Moving on to statuses. Statuses can be defined as persons of different levels of importance or significance within particular groups. When group members' statuses are clear to everyone, it becomes easier for members to understand and what they expect of each other. This comes hand in hand with group roles. Our statuses are formed by the way we choose to educate ourselves, and the roles that we pick for ourselves guide us to these different statuses. Moving on to trust, we all know that trust plays an important role in human interaction and that it could either be rewarded or betrayed. Building and maintaining trust, in fact, can be considered vital to a healthy functioning of a group. It's defined as a reliance on integrity, strength, ability, and dependability of a person or thing. And trusting ourselves in general is difficult, but trusting other people can be even more challenging. We've all made mistakes in our lives, so it's very natural to doubt our own reliability. And having to trust others and theirs and not knowing their relationship with trust can make things even more challenging. In our group, Always in Sync, we've always been able to find an area of trust within each other. We had to trust that we would all come together and find common ground and contribute what we can to make the class run smoothly and effectively. We took that leap of trust and we came together to create success within our group. And then moving on to memberships and digital groups. We have digital groups range widely in their formalities of level and longevity. Some are casual, whereas others are more official and rigorous. Like some secondary groups, there's also temporary groups that are directed towards short-term goals or permanent goals. Our group, as Always in Sync, was to work toward success in a short-term goal for this class, but also in a long-term goal for all of us individually. Some steps towards working in digital groups would be to first understand your group's norms, identifying them, and then challenging ones that you feel don't belong. Second would be to think about your responses and your communication skills. And you want to make sure that you're putting the energy that you want to get back. The goal is to make everybody in the group comfortable. So all of these categories give great insight on group memberships and roles. It'd be great to hear some more about some group motivation.
Thank you, Ezra, for that insight. So let's talk about motivation. What is it exactly? It provides the inspiration and the incentive that moves a group to work together, to collaborate, to really achieve one goal. And let's face it, getting people motivated to collaborate in groups can be extremely difficult. It requires persuasion and influence. And there's two types of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation as well as extrinsic motivation. This group, I would say, was motivated by both. Intrinsic motivations are the motivational factors that come from within. So, for example, I think each of us registered for this communication studies class, one as a requirement for our own degree, but also because we had a desire to learn effective communication skills and how they work in small groups. So intrinsic factors give people a sense of meaningfulness, a sense of choice, right? We all chose to take this class, a sense of competence, as well as a sense of progress. Extrinsic factors they come from external sources. And so an example would be, all of us coming together, working diligently on our projects and assignments because we all had a desire to get a good grade in the class. So let's talk about, the strategies. How did we motivate each other? So motivators' specific function is to create enthusiasm for the group's common goal. They bring out the best in others, they mentor others in an encouraging way. So this group, I would say, really practice setting measurable requests, right? We asked each other if it was okay to assign that particular task. We offered rewards. We defined our roles, and that helped us build trust. And it was very specific, relatable, time-bound. So for some examples, our group initially started out with 5 team members, and we managed to get to know each other pretty quickly by playing a game of We're Not Strangers. That helped break the ice. We then created a contract and outlined when we would meet, how we would communicate as a group, talked about expectations of what would happen if, someone was going to be out or unable to, perform that assigned task. But shortly after we committed and created this contract, our professor reached out and shared that we were adding another team member, making us a team of 6. And so that was a really challenging moment for our group because we had to be flexible, adjust our goals. We had to, figure out what was going to be the best method of communication to reach out to this new team member. We had to create a new group chat. And we just really had to ensure that we were all going to remain in sync. So some other examples I recall during our weekly meetings, we were able to stay focused and motivated because we talked about the objectives as a group, what we had intended to accomplish. And during those discussions, we allowed members to, clarify things, and members gave feedback. And when we talk about feedback, it was really important that when we were giving feedback to a specific team member, for example, we used their name, and that really helped form, a connection. And I think it showed the other person that they were worthy of the other person's time. There was another, occasion during the course of this class where during our podcast project, there was a team member who was not completely satisfied with the initial recording that we were planning to submit. And this group was able to take a step back, kind of assess that there was some dissatisfaction, and we came together, regrouped, and made the decision to re-record. And I think because that individual was honest, that feedback, right, and also the fact that other members were receptive to other people's suggestions, we were able to move forward and stay motivated. In addition, there were, a lot of occasions where there was some personal conflict that got in the way of, the goals that we had set out. But we were able to listen to one another and stay committed to coming up with an alternative solution together. And it did create some pressure and I think some anxiety for some of us, but I think that the actions that we took by listening helped us maintain order and purpose. And I would just say that the motivation, whether it was intrinsic or extrinsic, it gave us the strength to work together to complete our assignments and projects. So I think that Jacob can probably share a little bit more insight on how we were able to effectively have meetings.
Thanks, Khrisha. I appreciate it. I very much enjoyed listening to your take about motivation. But when it comes down to motivation, we talk about everything like, oh, what gets us to go into the things. When we get to our final stages of actually forming the groups and having the meetings and stuff, how can we tell it's successful? So one of the strategies that I mentioned here about having successful meetings with groups and all together is creating an open and honest communication between members. I believe that that's one of the main important goals between one another. When it comes down to speaking to one another, making sure that everything's heard about them, they don't keep anything to themselves that may influence and influx them later on throughout the course. It's better to be open and honest that you can assess the situation there then and there than it is later on where it might be more complicated. Also, I do want to say that it's better to plan accordingly to an agenda. When it comes down to planning accordingly, it's better to be planned ahead in the future than just to kind of be trying to catch up on past things that you're working on. And I think it also makes things more organized for team members. Everyone has a very set schedule, set goal, everything, especially when you're working with members that are very like, I have a lot of things going on in life. I have a lot of things going on here. And then you never know, life is very unpredictable. Things could happen, plans can change. It's always better to plan accordingly to an agenda that it can be adjusted really well. I also don't want to say that even with during these meetings, that's also better to come into the meetings that your expectations are very productive. You want to make sure that you're having a positive outcome coming out through your meetings, making sure that all the work that you guys discuss is getting done, everything that you're bringing up into topics, anything you're brainstorming together with your group members has to be talked about. And you want to make sure that just you're being very productive with one another, also with being respectful as well. I do also want to say during meetings that you want to encourage questions and problems that may facilitate into like ongoing goals. So not even just group meetings here or group meetings like anywhere else, like if you're taking one for another class, like it also happens even in the real world. We see it happen in places like the medical field. We see it happen in places like government, like Congress. People have like questions and they facilitate problems all the time when it comes down to a common goal because they say, well, what happens if this happens? It's better to assess the situation beforehand than have it come up to your very long conclusion to find out you might have to rethink everything through. And then also coming down to when it comes down to encouraging questions and problems, it's also really important to respect everyone's situation and or the conversation that's applied during the meetings. You want to make sure that everyone's situation when it comes down to, again, something happened in life, someone has to go somewhere, they won't be present. It's very good to understand that, and hey, they're a person as well. They need help with other things. Talk to them as a person, speak to them as a person. And also to make sure that anything that you speak about into a conversation is being taken in a very respectful way, whether it's yourself or with others. And you want to make sure that everyone else is heard. Being heard also gives a very big positive connotation between everyone and a good environment between the group. Now, moving on to my next slide, I do want to bring up some examples that we have experienced in our groups. So one of my prime example that I kind of like for myself, I experienced is during the first, I think 2 or 3 weeks in, I was going to Florida for a vacation, and I told my group members way ahead of time, hey, I can't make it to the group because I'm going to be gone out the way. During the group contract, we explained, this is kind of still in the week of the group contract as well. They were explaining that, how can we deal with this? How can we help them out? Well, not, putting our progress backwards. They explained that, we could record a Zoom meeting and then, if he's not important for him to be there and he's okay to set aside for this one meeting, then we could record it, send it to him so he's updated on information when he comes back for the next upcoming one. So that's one way that we used it. Also, constant and timely manner group messages were set as reminders for upcoming meetings. So certain people in our group members had to assign roles as like the mediator or the person that gave reminders for people what's going on. So they always managed to talk to everyone saying, oh, hey, this is upcoming due, this is due here. We're jumping in a meeting tomorrow at this time, this set day. Everything was discussed very thoroughly in a very timely manner, so everyone was able to react very easily. Other thing we had was one of the group members gave a lot of good feedback during Zoom meetings. So even during our first podcast meeting, we had it was met with intention, success, and compromise. And our first podcast, our first run through was good. One of our group members didn't think, she was like, we could probably do a little better, and it insisted that they felt comfortable doing the second time around. We all came to a consensus saying, yeah, no, maybe we should do a second time around. It'll make everyone feel better. Everyone's more comfortable doing it. Everything's great. We assessed the situation and did our second round through. Everyone was comfortable and everyone's goal and needs was met. So I believe that's also very important, being respectful, again, to other people's opinions and coming to a conciseness. And then finally, when it comes down to meetings, it's always easier for us. When we did our meetings, we pre-discussed what was going to go on to our next meeting with the previous one that we had before. So as I was saying, if we had a meeting today, we'd speak about, all the things that we're getting done, this is getting done here. And then as we come up to and what Abby used in our like kind of an adjourning way of the meeting, we're going to leave and say, we're going to do this next week. We're going to do this next week, giving a very detailed agenda of what we're going to do. But, when it comes down to group meetings, that you have your very step-by-step, how everything works, what you get out of the meetings. But the one thing you do want to know, and I'm very curious to know, is how do you listen in groups? I believe my friend Jesus can give you guys a good insight about that.
Everyone, I am Jesus Calderon, and I will be explaining to you about the benefits of group listening. 3 benefits from group listening. Number 1 is productive empathy, implies active listening to participants. This incorporates communication, interpretation, as well as the study of body language, such as expressions of face, arm position, and gestures. The last and final. The third benefit of group listening would be active listening while showing the speaker that you are interested in what they have to say. An example that would combine all 3 of these benefits would be if one group is doing a group presentation on a topic that a teacher has assigned to that group, and one person is doing all of the effort in that project, and the other students in that group is not, and that one student tries to encourage and motivate the other group members to do it, but they just gave that group member gestures, hand gestures, no, go away, or I do not care, or not my problem. And facial expressions such as an upset and facial expressions that are empty, pretty much showing that they are not going to put effort in a project. So then the student goes to the teacher and presents their complaint to the teacher, but the teacher is busy filing his taxes on the computer. So the teacher just gives some gestures, hand gestures, confirming that the student is being heard, such as a thumbs up, and also saying small things like, okay, I understand, I will do something about it. And then the And then that one student tries again to encourage the group, though it does not work out in the end. And that is why group listening is important, to assure that everyone in the group is satisfied and productive when doing a assignment that involves teamwork, cooperation, and group listening. And this concludes my presentation.
For our conclusion and wrap up, we're going to go over some of our key points that we went through today. So first is going to be our communication consists of understanding, sharing, and meaning. There are 8 essential elements found in communication: source, message, channel, receiver, feedback, environment, context, and interference. Next would be working in groups can be difficult, but with insight and great understanding of group development, it can make each group a good experience, a positive one. Understanding our group roles and identifying our norms can help create a more productive flow of communication. Motivating individuals and groups gives people the why to reach their goals. It sparks the interest to accomplish their visions. The groups and meetings help us achieve success with strategic planning of facilitating important conversations. Listening to others can engender jubilation and peace within the group, and while making sure everybody's voice is listened to. Thank you so much for joining our presentation on groups and introspective insight. Thank you.